विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ, मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।
Hello and welcome once again in the 18th World Education Summit, day 2 and the last panel discussion. The topic of the panel discussion is Impact of Globalization on Indian Education System. And for this, we have panelist Dr. Kavita Bajpai, Director at the International School of Thrissur. Welcome, ma'am. Sonya Ghandy Mehta, School Director, Pathways World School, Aravali. And Anuradha Krishnan, Principal, Primus Public School, Bengaluru. Two of speaker are also joining in between. Dr. Kavita Aggarwal, Chairperson, MISA, Mumbai, and Meeta Sharma, Principal, Mussoorie International School, Mussoorie. I just hand it over to our moderator, Dr. Kavita Bajpai. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Krishna Singh, for the opportunity. And because today's topic, which says impact of globalization on Indian education system, is a very thought-provoking topic, because on this particular topic, a kind of a SWOT analysis if we do, we get to know a lot of things and the possibilities of it. Because globalization is an opportunity for those who are aware of the benefits due to their vigilance and inquisitiveness, which have proper access to information. Every individual wants to lead a successful life, wants to live a complete life with most of the amenities around. That includes basic necessities. Apart from that, all the luxuries, right? So only a few actually get the affordability and availing them due to the limited supply of resources, insufficient for unlimited demand. So when we talk about, in this particular aspect, when we talk about education, the same is the scenario. But the ongoing pandemic situation has changed a lot of perceptions. What we were having till 2019, or I must say a year before, till 2020 March, and today what we have, I think there has been a complete paradigm shift when it comes to the education. And when we talk about today the global impact, the yeah, the aspects, the our views are totally different. So I welcome once again all the esteemed panelists over here who are known as to be a progressive leader and who have carved their names in the global and international education. So welcome once again. And today we are going to discuss couple of points on which we are going to analyze like what kind of the impact is there on the Indian education system of this globalization, and what is the need, what else can be done. So I can see Miss Meeta Sharma also joined in, so welcome ma'am. Miss Kavita
Thank you.
Aggarwal has also joined, welcome once again. So yes, I will be starting with couple of questions. I want you all to throw some light with your views, your expertise, and your ideas about the globalization into Indian education scenario. So my first question would go to Miss Sonya Gandhi Mehta, who is the school director, Pathways World School, Aravali. Welcome, ma'am, once again. And yes, today, when I would like to ask, I want to ask you, like the education sector, we all know that it is undergoing a constant changes under the effects of globalization and rapid development in technology as well as communications are seen. So our teachers and students, they are trying to cope with this change. And of course with the COVID we have seen that how overnight we tried to be ready for the unknown, because none of us ever thought any such scenario, any such situation may also arrive. So what do you feel about the readiness of our educators, our students, as well as our school? Ma'am, Miss Mehta.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kavita, for this question. It's a very valid question. I would say our students have always been ready because our students are all um, digital natives, let's put it. It's we teachers who are the digital immigrants. And for us to, especially during the time of pandemic, we had to work very hard initially to catch up or come to some level where we could reach and interact and engage our students online because our students are so evolved with technology. We have to sort of keep up with them and make sure that we now have our classes as engaging online as we could do offline, because we've always just been used to offline classes. And I think that I'm not only talking about my school, but all other schools, did a wonderful job of getting up to speed as soon as possible. Yes, it was a challenge. Teachers, I think, initially had to work very hard to try and get an understanding of what to do. But now I think teachers are so comfortable working online, and to some extent, it is also convenient for teachers to work from home, that now to make the shift back into school is going to be a challenge for many. In fact, our school, we are doing the hybrid model right now because we are technically open, but still we don't even have 50% of us children coming back, because a lot of them are so comfortable with the online classes and they feel that they are getting as much as they would if they were coming to school. So that's where we are at right now.
Great, great. So yes, as very rightly Ms. Mehta had put this forward, that student readiness was never a question, but certainly educators' readiness was something which we acquired overnight, I must say. Yes, with the initial hiccups and initial issues were there, the struggle was there, but I think we educators have done fairly a good job as a frontline worker even during this time of pandemic. So thank you for your answer, Ms. Mehta. I'm moving to Ms. Anuradha with the same question. I want to to know your views on it. Do you feel that the way these rapid changes are happening, like the globalization, it's an era of globalization, the technology, the communication, everything is changing overnight. So what do you feel about the readiness of our students and our educators? So I would also like to give your views in 2 minutes so that we can move to the next panelist. Yes, Miss Anuradha.
Sure, thank you. I completely agree with what Sonya just said. Yes, students are digital natives, and the expectation was that teachers would fall flat, at this point in time. But I think we turned that perception on its head, and this is true for teachers across the country, maybe across the globe, who really rose to the occasion and were able to adapt so fast and not let the children down. Like, they were constantly under pressure to deliver, because these kids were ahead of us in terms of the lack of fear of technology. They were very comfortable with fiddling around with gadgets and apps. Teachers were not, but they really got into it very quickly, learned new techniques and new strategies to engage children, to keep them engrossed in class. Because in addition to using of technology, there's also this thing of, we can't just transfer a physical classroom onto the online medium. You had to change strategies, and they did come up with really good strategies to do that. And I dread to think if such a pandemic had hit us even 10 years ago, God forbid, imagine trying to deal with schooling then, when there was no Zoom, there was no, Google Classroom. Even 2-3 years ago, when we tried to do projects with, schools in New Zealand and Middle East, there was this whole drama about setting up a Skype call and fix it. It was all it had to be planned. It was critical. Now it's everybody's so comfortable with it. It's easy peasy. Nobody thinks about it anymore. So I think it has taught us a lot. While yes, the pandemic has been disastrous in many ways, but I think here it has been a turning point. It has become a pivot for us to move into more globalization and more technology and more communication. So for that, I am thankful. So that's the silver lining, I think.
Wow, brilliant. Thank you so much for your answer. As you have emphasized once again, like most of our education leaders, that I think we have overcome in terms of the initial glitches or initial hiccups, and the hybrid learning, or you can say the remote learning or the blended learning, all these things are going to stay in future as well. That's what my take home from your points right now. Moving to Miss Meeta Sharma. Welcome, ma'am. And I will be moving one step forward or one step ahead what we have discussed so far, because we have been discussing about the readiness of our school children as well as educators. So on the same lines, I would like to ask you, do you feel that NEP 2020 can help fetch the international standards, and in future will be able to attract the students coming from all over? Like, our children, they aspire to study in Europe, in UK and US. You feel that it can be other way around as well with NEP 2020? Why I'm bringing this question? Because the question has come from the audience, and as I found it is quite relevant in continuation to what we are discussing now about the hybrid learning, blended learning, paradigm shift, and the readiness of our teachers who are on the path, and students have been smart enough to be ready for the change. So over to you, Miss Meeta Sharma. I would like to know your views on the same. You're on mute, ma'am. Ma'am, you are on mute. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out. Remove.
No, you are on. Now it's on mute. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So, Dr. Kavita, thank you very much for the very pertinent question. And Sonya, good to see you after a very long time. And hello to the other panelists. This is a very, very important question. And in fact, it's being deliberated and debated about everywhere. NEP has not just come into existence in a short duration of time, but a lot has gone in to bring out the NEP. And my personal view and my personal opinion is that it is the NEP which definitely will meet the international standards. How and how this execution and implementation is going to be, that's a different question. But what it entails definitely calls in for international standards, where there is a lot of subject combination which is given, a lot of stress on vocational and hands-on learning, experiential learning, and a lot of choices which are there. The best part about NEP, which I personally like, is that there would be just one board examination at the end of 4 years, the last 4 years of school. And after every 6 months, there could be a change of subjects, and a plethora of subjects could be, they are there to choose from. Attraction from the international community of students, yes, definitely. In the time to come, we will see international students coming into our country, and more so because the education system would be now at par with the internationally benchmarked standards. The other day, I was talking to the PYP head of North India, Mr. Balakrishnan, and Mahesh Subramanian, not Balakrishnan, yes. And he was also explaining to me how the PYP program of the International Baccalaureate is so aligned with the NEP, and how every aspect of that particular curriculum is embedded into the NEP. Believe me when I say so, whenever a curriculum is charted for a country, this curriculum, this NEP has the program has come up after a very, very long time. But whenever it is done, the people who are behind it actually look forward and look into the best educational practices across the world which are prevalent and pick up the best and put it into the system. It is not reinventing the wheel, but actually gathering the best from other curriculums and putting it into the program which is planned for the country. Like I said, if the implementation goes well and those initial hiccups which will be there, if they can be smoothened, this is really, really going to do wonders for the country in the years to come.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Meeta. Yes, what you said, even I totally agree to that, because when we look at NEP or the way national curriculum, I mean, we all are waiting for national curriculum framework as well. So once we talk about it, yes, it is somewhere seems to be at par with the global standards. But at the end of the day, the question remains the same: the readiness of the teachers, their adaptability, their flexibility, their training, and then their execution. So I think, yes, the readiness matters. So I'm coming with the same question to Dr. Kavita Aggarwal. Thank you so much in seeing you after such a long time, Dr. Aggarwal. So I would like to ask the same question to you. Like, NEP talks about global standards. NEP talks about, best of the practices and the pedagogies across the globe. But do you feel that our teachers can do justice with that? Are they ready to take such a big leap? Because yes, it's going to bring big change. Ma'am, you are
Thank
on
you.
mute. Yeah, perfectly all right. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Kavita. And I would like to express my view on this particular aspect is that we need to reboot our education system. The education is going under great transformation. So we need to redefine and rethink everything. Now, as far as NEP is concerned, has incorporated best practices from all the international boards. When we talk about NEP and their implementation, NEP is very well planned, meticulously planned, and they are going to give us the guideline for the implementation. And secondly, once the execution is done, then we have to assess that, and after the reflection we will have to come back. It's a cycle thing. Now, when the best practices are adapted, for example, teaching methodology is the one thing which actually makes the entire education very successful. And the teaching methodology, when we talk about, and the NEP says that it has to be collaborative learning, it has to be inquiry based learning, it has to be mind mapping and graphic organizer, it has to be child centric, it has to be parent centric, it has to be actually the education which is value based. So the holistic gamut of the education system, what NEP has presented, of course, it is going to give a big boost to our Indian culture, our Indian education, and as it is, India is far better and far ahead far ahead in the education sector, as long as it is concerned from the intellectual point of view. So when we talk about the intellect domain, our children are very much intellectually inclined, they are academically inclined, and as well as our parents are supporting the same, and they are also very competitive. The best thing is the Indian education system also adds lots of values and cultural values into it. So when we talk about this NEP, it incorporates everything. Now the only challenge in front of us is that how are we going to implement NEP, and how are we going to reflect and take the suggestion and improvise on that. That is a big challenge. Otherwise NEP is going to be fantastic, and I think it is going to bring a lot of change in the education fraternity and education sector, whereas the teachers, when they are asked to adopt, now every teacher is looking forward to upgrade herself, because pandemic has taught us lot of things. Every teacher has become tech savvy. Every teacher is involved in the research. Every teacher is looking forward to do something better. So yes, I can say all teachers are ready to take any challenge from the NEP, and they will be successful. That is the thing which it goes without saying, that our Indian teachers are dedicated, and they will go ahead with NEP very successfully.
Thank you, Dr. Aggarwal. And I think one of our audience who had asked that if India can be the global guru again, so you must have got your answer. Yes, we are on the road to be the one. The only challenge is the adaptability, the flexibility, as well as rebooting the whole system, as Dr. Aggarwal said, and then moving on to be in sync with the NEP and moving forward. So thank you so much, and I think that this particular question has given quite a lot of insight to us. So I would like to ask another question, and I would like to come back to Dr. Kavita this time first. So because you have been talking about, teachers, they are bright, they want to upgrade themselves, they are all really looking forward to. So I would like to understand how this the technological and cultural impacts of globalization in India. What do you feel? What could be, or what are the impacts in India? Because India is a vast country which comes with a lot of diversity. And when you talk about even the educators, they are, fortunately in India, we have number of curriculums which are ongoing. National curriculums as well as international curriculum, state board curriculum, which also seem to be quite progressive of late. There's a lot which is happening. So what do you feel? What are the technological and cultural impacts of globalization in India?
So
Dr. Kavita.
cultural impact and globalization, I think our teacher is versatile. She is dynamic. She can adapt the change in seconds. I have seen some of the photographs when the teachers are sitting in the sugarcane farm and giving the lesson, because there was the network coverage area was only on that spot. I have seen some of the videos of the teachers, those who are actually giving the lessons. They are keeping the mobile up and writing down like this. So adapting technology, it's like now it has become their part of the life, and they have become research oriented. So they can do wonders. And pandemic has taught us a lot of things. So teacher's role has actually transformed, totally transformed. She has now become a facilitator. She has become more of a motivator, rather than teacher and who can give the lesson in the class. So she has changed the role. She has actually motivated our learner to go to another level. So teacher is a backbone of entire education system, and she has taken a beautiful transformation during this pandemic. Technology is a cakewalk now for all the teachers, from the rural area to the international education. All are very, very comfortable now. Only one challenge for me and for other leaders also, how to bring them from their comfort zone to the school. That is the challenge for us.
Correct. Okay, great. Thank you for your inputs. I am coming back to Ms. Anuradha now with the same question. So, Dr. Kavita Aggarwal has spoken about the technological, impact, and she said that has made teachers, or rather, that has empowered teachers even more. And the versatility of the teachers, their flexibility, their adaptability, every quotient we have seen, like how they have been so quick. And not only they have been an educator, rather they have been a learner here, who learned and adapted to the new way of teaching and learning methodology, and they've been quite successful. So I want to know from you, what do you feel, what are the cultural impacts of globalization in India? Technological, yes, we all know so far by now. So what do you feel, what are the cultural impacts of globalization?
See,
Miss Anuradha, yeah.
yes, I believe that our culture is so strong and deeply rooted in ourselves that the incoming of any Western culture that we are worried about because of globalization is not going to make a dent on anything, right? There is possibly going to be a little more openness. There's going to be a little more ability to think broadly, to not be blinders on kind of thinking, to be able to have an approach of accepting more diversity, accepting questioning. This is one thing that we need to change significantly. A lot of places you still find that students are frightened of questioning. They think you can't question authority, and we have to break that down, because the only way a child will learn if the child is if he or she is allowed to question. So I think that's a huge cultural shift that we have to make, allowing the children the freedom to ask anything, to explore, allowing them the freedom to fail. This is something that our culture has not allowed. Failure was seen as this horrible thing that happens to you. But it's only with failing that a child can learn. So I think that is a positive thing that will come from this globalizing of education, things like that. Yes, there may be a fear that, what happens to our tradition, to our, culture. We can still have, modules on Indian culture, Indian ethos, Indian, whatever, various things about it. We can, and not can, we must have modules on all of this so that children are familiar. But I think it's important that we make every child a global citizen, rather than saying that you are Indian and therefore you cannot be a global citizen. I think we have automatically become part of this global village, and there's no way out but to belong to it. Yeah, don't lose your individuality. I think that's critical. Each of us retain our individuality, but we don't get subsumed into this whole, I am Indian and therefore I have to accept anything they say, whether I believe it or not. I find that is a huge negative in our system. It's not true in the elite schools, in the school, the possibly urban city international schools. These don't happen. I think we've got used to it, but it is true across most of India. So I think that needs to change. That needs to change. I'm not worried. Actually, I'm very happy with the influx of
Great.
Western.
Thank you. Thank you for inputs, Ms. Anuradha. I am moving to now Ms. Meeta Sharma. My question remains the same, because more I'm talking to you people, more I'm thinking that these are pretty open-ended questions, and your inputs, your views, your perspective will throw a lot of, more light on it, and that will be even more thought-provoking for all of us. So, Ms. Meeta, my question to you is, what do you feel, what are the technological and cultural impacts of globalization in India?
Okay, so Kavita, let me take this to a different direction. We just heard that the Western civilization may not affect us to that extent, and open-mindedness, judgmental. We may not be judgmental. We may not stay judgmental. Our acceptance may increase. Our mindsets may change. But let me just divert this, tweak it a little bit, and I would say probably globalization is going to take India a long way ahead. Being known in the world. It is our yoga, which is now going to be through globalization, reaching every corner of the world. It's already there, but whatever corners are left, it'll end up reaching there. Our culinary delights will end up everywhere. Our dances, our classical dances will reach places. So globalization definitely has a positive impact. It brings out India, in a much, much bigger way, and gets us known at various other places. We've been there. Some of us have been there. Some of us have made the difference. Some of us have tasted the flavors. But now, to a larger extent, India is going to be out there in the open thanks to technology. The learning of pedagogical skills will not just be within the country, but through collaboration, through technology, they would be, would be shared. Good practices would be shared all across. I would like to bring across, this is just coming to my mind. There was this experiment which was called a hole in the wall, whereby Sugata Mitra had put in a computer in some locality where there were a lot of these not so privileged children, and they just got into this hole in the wall, and they did not understand the language of the computer, English. It was, though it was kind of a user-friendly device then, and they just started fiddling with the buttons, and eventually they ended up doing so much and learning so much. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that it is the access, the accessibility of knowledge, as well as teaching pedagogies, as well as the culture of various places. You get to see it and experience it, and that would make an impact. The other thing I would like to say is, when we were young and would travel, or we would be told that we are going on a vacation to this particular place, we had no idea how that place would look like. We had no idea what kind of hotel we would be staying in. This is what technology is going to be doing to us. And this traveling, I talk about traveling because traveling is one of the biggest factors which contributes to, and one of the strongest and effective factors which contributes to education in various spheres. You can see pictures, you can experience things, maybe not physically, but through your mind you can see what's happening. Technology is going to reinvent our lives in a way which is beyond our comprehension, sitting here today and discussing. So yes, the impact is beyond the scope of discussion, whether it's cultural or technological, but I still maintain the same point that I said while the first question was asked to me, that how is this going to be implemented, given that 90% of India is in the rural background, given that 90% teachers are in the rural background. The bandwidth over there is not as good as it should be. One of the speakers talked about holding a class in a sugarcane field. I mean, that's kudos to that teacher. Yet, how many people have that? How many people will have that time and flexibility to find places where this bandwidth would be, and they could kind of take education forward? NEP is great in its own, but yet how is it going to be implemented? Any school, any organization which is dealing with education can thrive, and then it can only thrive because of three factors. And those three factors are professional development, and professional development. So these three factors, which in a sense are the same factor raised to the power 3, we need to figure out how this educational technology can impact these teachers who are 90% teachers of India, schools in India. Sitting in elite schools, it's very, very easy for us to debate and deliberate upon this. But if the NEP can somehow manage to make a difference there, we are a nation to reckon. We are a nation with which the world would like to march in the years to come.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Meeta Sharma. I'm coming to Ms. Sonya Mehta with the question, but with a little twist in it. Of course, we have understood that, or we are rather deliberating on this particular thing, that technological and cultural impacts are there of globalization, right? But I just want to understand, because the kind of inputs I'm getting, so one thing I'm getting, yes, there are positive impacts, and there are impacts which we are so looking forward to, that this will bring real positive changes in the scenario. But don't you feel, or rather I would like to have your views, that with these technological and cultural impacts of globalization in India, whether they are going to widen the gap or bridge the gap between the urban and rural setups, or privileged or not so privileged schools? Your views. Ma'am, you are on mute.
It's a very good question to deliberate on, because at this point, the way things are set up and the kind of infrastructure that is available in the rural areas, I can see that the gap is going to widen. However, I don't think that this is going to be the situation forever. With the amount of infrastructural development that is happening in our country and the rate at which it is happening, I am sure that the technological reach in the rural areas will also become much better, and therefore you will have the bandwidth to conduct these kind of classes. But then again, one has to look at the socioeconomic status of people in the rural areas. Maybe every family has only one smartphone. Even those smartphones now are very easily available and virtually at every price range you can even think of. But even then, for people in the rural area to have multiple phones in a family, or to think of buying a computer or even a tablet, is not really something that one can think of right now. And therefore, I think it is incumbent on the government to look at how they can provide the tools for using technology in the rural areas to the government schools, or to maybe community centers in the villages around, so that there is at least some sort of central access to most of the people around. You might not be individual access, but definitely central access. So yes, the gap is definitely initially going to widen, but I think especially with the NEP coming up, and if the NEP is carried out the way it is presented as a policy, it is really going to take education very far in our country. It's definitely going to revolutionize it. But as my other fellow panelists have also stressed, is that it depends on how it is going to be translated into action. On paper, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, certainly. So thank you for your inputs. And yes, the need of the hour is, to right now to go with the flow, but keep our, there has to be agenda, there has to be a goal setting and milestone setting as well. And I think this is the way we can move forward. Okay, so I'm moving to my next question, and I'm going to Miss Anuradha once again. We have discussed a lot about globalization, technology, cultural impact, and many other things as well. So, what do you feel? I mean, this globalization in particular, is it going to improve the quality of education in our country? Because yes, we are also talking about NEP. So NEP has taken a lot of inference from various, the curriculum framework and various education policies across the globe. So when we talk about it, do you feel that this kind of the globalization is going to help us improving the quality of education in our country?
Yes, I think so. I'm very positive actually about this whole change that could happen. Again, could happen because implementation, like everyone says, is a question mark. But if it, I think at least some of it will definitely happen. Taking things like being, the way in which we teach, the way in which we assess, varieties of assessment, as mentioned in NEP, as we do in international boards, thinking about metacognition. This is something that we don't help our children with at all. Learning about learning, thinking about thinking. We don't do this meta stuff at all. Theory of knowledge, another excellent thing that we should develop with the children, or global perspectives. These are things that are very much part of the international curriculum, which should seep into the way our children learn, the way our children think. It must give them a greater focus on ideation, on creation. We are experts as Indians in giving quantity of stuff to study for the children. Our quantum of stuff that we make the children learn is huge. And we're very good at learning it. We are very good at remembering, at using that. But what we lack is research skills. What we lack is analysis. What we lack is innovation, because we don't, children are frightened to innovate and try something for fear of failure. So that's something that we need to pick up from this globalization thing. We also need to think of not focusing on this end of year exam, which luckily NEP is talking about, not focusing on that kind of assessment, giving the freedom to find different ways to assess whether children have understood or not, get conceptual understanding and move on. I think these are some of those things that we have to focus on, right? And when we're talking about technology and its impact, I just wanted to add that while the kind of technology that we're using will definitely widen the gap, as Sonya was saying, it will. There's no in the initial stage, but I believe that the way we've innovated, we will come up with a method that uses less bandwidth, that can be accessible in the villages, that can communicate and deliver good lessons even in areas that are in the boondocks. So is going to work, and I'm very, very positive about those impacts, and I certainly believe our children will learn to think globally, will learn to come out with theories, maybe win Nobels because they are able to actually come up with some new discoveries and inventions because we are allowing them to. Right? I'm very positive about it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for your views, ma'am. I'm coming to Dr. Kavita Aggarwal now. And ma'am, I want to understand from you, of course, NEP is there and we are so looking forward to the correct implementation of NEP, because I think this is one question which is somewhere it is still under a question mark, because that needs a lot of readiness. But apart from NEP, I would like to understand like how globalization can help us to improve the quality of education. Certainly this is one part, so we have been discussing, and until it gets implemented, I think we will not be able to say much about it. Yes, we are so hopeful, but I want to understand only on the part of globalization, what do you feel? I mean, the kind of the globalization we are talking about, especially in the higher education, or even if we are talking about the international curriculum. And so what do you feel? How the quality of education has improved or it will be improved? Ma'am, you are on mute.
Hello. Since I am from the international education background, I can say that how globalization has impacted the national curriculum. So I can define it in three domains. One is physical domain, second is emotional domain, and third is intellectual domain. Now, when I talk about the physical domain, so we can see that there is a drastic change now, that how our physical classrooms are set. So earlier there was one bench where 3 students will sit, or there are 50 students in one class, and the interactive boards were not there. And now, because of the globalization, when we are doing a lot of research, we are comparing our curriculum with other countries, and there are a lot of exchange programs. So eventually the schools have started adopting this kind of a change. And I think in Mumbai, Billabong International School was the first school to bring about this drastic change in physical environment of the classroom. So and there was absolutely different classroom. So when the child comes to the class, he has to find his place, that where I'm going to sit today, because every day the classroom sitting arrangement is changed. So there was a big surprise for him. So this is a physical domain where the technology has been integrated, the physical classroom arrangement has been integrated, the interactive boards have been incorporated. Now, second domain when I look at is the emotional domain. We have actually changed a lot in dealing with our children, with our parents, and with our teachers. We as leaders have learned that how to say no without saying no, actually are how to deal with our children, because we have to keep their emotional quotient so much in mind that today, because of the globalization, because of this exposure of a lot of knowledge and bombardment of knowledge, children have become well researched, well informed. Parents know everything, and every now and then we get to hear that, you said this way and my child is under stress, my child is traumatized. So we have learned a lot that this is the impact of globalization, because of the technology, everything has come so close to each other that we are now one community. Now, third domain is an intellectual domain where I don't deny the content is going to remain the same, but the teaching pedagogy, it has also changed. Now, all the even in the rural area, the teaching pedagogy has changed so much that these teachers are using experiential learning to the maximum capacity, and they are making the classroom so interesting and so happening. So with the tech enabled class and with the lot of experiential learning, there is an I was very much surprised to see that even BNC teachers, I mean the school, in the public school, the teachers are conducting inquiry based learning in the class. That was the biggest achievement of the globalization. So teachers have started believing in the good transaction of the academic curriculum in the class. So this way, globalization has brought a greater impact in the education system, and we have gone to another level in a very short time. So we have actually we have started rethinking, redesigning our curriculum and our education system. So this is a major contribution. Because of the technology, the globe has become very close to each other, and there is very good exchange program from one country to the other.
Correct. Absolutely. I think the exposure matters the most. And yes, this is how our teachers are getting the benefit. They are getting exposed to the best of the practices across the globe. And changes are seen being translated inside the classroom. So thank you, Dr. Aggarwal. I'm moving to Miss Meeta Sharma. And from here, we will have to time our answers. I'm so sorry, but I look at the clock because the discussion has been so interesting that I actually didn't look at it. But when I look at the clock, I feel, yes, we have limited time in our hands. So, Ms. Meeta, from here, we will be we'll try to wrap up our answers in 2 minutes. So, my question to you, in continuation to what Dr. Kavita Aggarwal has said, what is because she's talking about the global exposure, the exposure to the best of the practices. So what do you feel, what is the best way to give the global exposure to the educators so that they can contribute towards the improvement in the quality of education? So your views, please.
So let me first kind of simplify what global exposure should mean in terms of schooling and teaching and learning. Global exposure only means that, or rather I would say mostly means to me, that the pedagogies and practices which are prevalent, and that too, which are the best practices prevalent over there, should be customized to the requirement of the schools in India. Those practices can be brought about by various means. Those practices have actually been documented. There are research papers on them. They are all readily available. You could get in resource people from outside to help you out with them. And like the NEP talks about cluster schools and says that one school would be basically, taking care of the schools in the vicinity, in the 5-kilometer perimeter within that, around that school, and collaborating to learn practices. There's so many great practices within schools in India which have also not reached the rural, settings of schools. We have to first make a beginning of ensuring that the practices which really enhance education, not just literacy, but education in its fullest meaning, are brought down to those levels before we even talk about global practices. The global practices, why are we assuming that the practices which are in the countries beyond India are the best practices? There are a lot of practices which are prevalent in India, which people who have studied abroad or maybe who've had tenures abroad have brought back to India. We need to first dissipate that. India has been a guru in education. And somebody just said we can also be a guru. We can, in the coming years, we may end up becoming the educational guru for the entire world. Let us first look into our practices which are there in our scriptures, in our, everything has originated from India. Most of the things, Ayurveda, the mathematical system of, decimals and all of that. So yes, what I would like to say is that Let's first, they say charity begins at home, but let's first begin this the spread of best practices from the great schools of India, which have survived many years, which are really marching ahead because of their position, their placement, and their resources, and take this to the other schools where this is not there. This is going to be a huge leap, and a huge leap of faith in spreading education, and it will be a social commitment for schools like ours to do so. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your inputs. And yes, as you rightly said, that majority of the practices which we, if we look back, have started from India. But even we cannot deny the fact, though they started from India in the ancient time, but by the time we reach to present era, we have lost them, or somewhere we have moved, we have deviated from them. So I think the need of the hour is to look back as well as to also look forward what is there for us, because certainly there are countries who have taken best of the practices from India, but they are sustaining those practices are still alive there. But if you look back, probably we started, but we somewhere we lost that track. So I'm coming to I'm coming to Ms. Sonya Mehta now, and I want to understand. I mean, in continuation to the answer what Ms. Meeta Sharma has given, that look back and find out what best we have. So I agree, but still, even if we look back and we see what best we have, or if we talk about globalization, because the entire world has become a global village now, so there are many practices are there which are pretty overlapping in nature. But what do you feel? What could be done to increase the reach of these practices to the maximum teachers? Because if we talk about the improvement in the quality of education, then the masses have to be trained, they have to be forward thinker, they have to be progressive in nature. And I think this is the biggest gap where we struggle. Factors could be many. One of the major factors is the diversity the country has, and so is the population. But if we keep all these factors together, and yet we want to find out a way how to increase the reach to the majority of the teachers, to so that they are exposed to the best of the best of the practices, and they can contribute towards the improvement of the quality of education. So Ms. Sonya Mehta, please.
I think the one thing that we have to really look at is our curriculum and the amount of knowledge that we want our children to get out of it. Just now, our entire curriculum is so heavy with knowledge that the teachers are stretched to try and race through the curriculum. So they're teaching the curriculum, they're not teaching the child.
Correct.
By cutting down the curriculum, then it gives the teacher more flexibility in associating what is happening in the class to the outside, and that is where the biggest impact is going to be, because it's only when children can draw connections to what they're learning, to how they can apply that knowledge. That is where learning is going to last, learning is going to be meaningful, and education is going to be enjoyable for children. While I also believe that, while there is a certain amount of competition that is required, to keep children motivated to study, I think our Indian education system has gone a little to quite an extreme. And one needs to learn to compete with themselves, to better themselves in getting to the next stage, rather than competing with others. So rather than trying to be first in class, if you were 12th in class, you try and become 10th in class, and then keep climbing the ladder that way. But competing with yourself is going to be far more beneficial for the education system for our country. While I know I've not really answered your question, Kavita, I think that Meeta had said initially that professional development is something that is very important. And while most teachers, and I would, especially in the rural areas, that kind of commitment to bettering the way of teaching, how they get about, how they are in the class, what kind of exposures they give their children, unless it is government mandated, if they are in a government school, or unless it is forced on them, it is not something that they have reached as yet. And that is one area that we really need to try and get to the teachers. The whole mindset
No,
of teachers has
certainly,
to change.
certainly. Yeah, certainly. Makes a lot of sense what you said. It's not that you have not given the answer. Probably you have given us a broader perspective and outlook on that to think about, to ponder upon. So thank you so much. In fact, there has been a question from one of our audience, and the person says teachers have adapted to use technology. However, the skills to use technology appropriately need a lot of further improvements and training. So the question was, is there a definite plan for schools in our education systems to practically refine use of technology in the days to come? And I think anyone whomsoever had asked this question would got the answer by now, that yes, we all the educators are unanimously on the same page that yes, we do need, and we are so looking forward to have NEP in action soonest. So yes, moving forward, and
Kavita, if I
in
can
fact,
just interrupt, Kavita, if I can just interrupt and add,
please,
that
please.
one thing that we also need, while we just now are in this technology euphoria, because we seem, we feel so empowered to use technology.
Correct.
Um, I think that as educators, it is very important that we learn what exactly is responsible digital use, and make
Yeah.
sure that our students also follow that, because our students are very good with technology. Very often, I'm sure you will all agree with me, that if a teacher struggles in class, they ask the children, how do I do this, how do I do that, and they'll get to know in within minutes. The children will explain to them, what do they have to press to sort of access
And that's a
whatever
very
they.
positive change, that's a positive
Yes,
change when the teacher and children, their interaction has reached to that level. So
yes.
it's that, yeah, so it's a very good change. Yes, correct.
But we have to focus on responsible digital use.
I agree. I totally agree what you said. I'm sure most of us will agree to that, or rather all of us. So what I have understood from your views, Miss Sonya, like curriculum is basically it is the implementation to explore and to discover rather than stuff what we cover. Correct. And this is exactly
Yes,
today I have received as one
absolutely.
of the forwards today. And I was so overwhelmed seeing that. I said this is particularly the need of all of us to understand. When I say all of us, it's a very generic statement, because when I consider myself to be a progressive educator, I consider myself to be an educator who has to still learn a lot and who's so looking forward to learning.
We
Okay,
all are
so
learning.
now, yes, I think that's the beauty of this profession. So I think we are moving towards the end of our conversation. So one last question to each one of you quickly, and this time I would like to start with Miss Meeta Sharma, but I could not see her. Probably her connection has been some issue. Nevertheless, as soon as she joins, I'll reach to her. So I will be starting with Miss Sonya, you again. So the age-old system of education has to be reformed. This is what we have been discussing. We have been talking, and not only us. I think the NEP has come because of this reason only, right? There has been a lot of research on it, and a lot of time has been invested. So, what do you feel? How practical knowledge should be given more priority than the theoretical knowledge? Because I think this is very important. Now, hands-on learning or experiential learning is something which has to come into action. And this is, if you look back, of course, Gurukul system was the one where there was a lot of hands-on learning, and the experiential learning is basically, once again, if I say so, I may not be wrong, that it has been originated from India. But yes, gradually, when the other curriculum or international pedagogies were continuing with the same approach, probably somewhere we got stuck between the marks, the grades, the exams, and the rote learning, chalk and talk methodology. So, what do you feel? I mean, how we can bring this practical knowledge or experiential learning model back over the theoretical model? Ms.
I
Sonia.
think a lot of what I spoke just now, is very pertinent to this, by bringing real life situations in. By, if you're teaching trigonometry, how do you use trigonometry in real life? You're using statistics, get them to, make statistical charts based on, maybe a cricket match or whatever the passion of the child is. And that is how they will connect their learning to real life situations. And once that connection is made, it's very hard to break. If you learn something, you will forget it as soon as you finish your exam. But if you have done something through using it in a practical way, then it takes a long time for you to forget something like this. So that, I think, is a very important thing that we need to keep in mind. And I also feel that now we are where, teachers and students need to be kind of partners in school. And if you are teaching a concept and you talk to your students to find out what is it from that concept that interests them, what do they want to learn? And if you also bring that into your teaching or into the whole exploration that you take the children, the journey that the children take, then you will find that they will definitely be more interested in learning. And, their whole focus on you in class is going to be much more, because they feel that they have had a voice in what is going on in class. So rather than, just pushing everything onto them, saying that, I'm the teacher in the class, so therefore you have to learn this, it is something that if the children and the teacher go on a journey with, it's going to be far more fruitful. And of course, then a lot of practical things will come into play as well.
Perfect. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, with the same question, I'm moving to Miss Anuradha now. When we talk about experiential learning, so how to ensure that experiential learning is taking over, rather than just the rote learning? Of course, when we talk about international curriculum, which then we can talk a lot about it. But when we talk about the masses, when we talk about most of the schools, so is there any way which you feel that ensuring experiential learning is possible?
Yeah, actually, I think even state boards have done a lot towards this. In Karnataka, there's the Nali Kali version where it's about play and learn. And I know Kerala has done it. I know many states are doing this. So it's not as if it's only the international schools that are working on it. Everyone's taking children out, for instance, into the garden for play and learn, for observational skills, for creating maker spaces is what we call it fancily, but allowing them to break down a cycle and remake it, for instance, is a hands-on learning, right? And insisting that every lesson is taught with that application mode, as Sonya just said, connecting it to how it impacts them. Why should I learn trigonometry? It's a very pertinent question, because every child worries about learning trigonometry, and when they realize that they can use it and they will use it, that's when it makes sense to them. So moving from mark-based learning to mastery, and that can only happen when you're not trying to master everything that is there. So like she again said, reduce and make sure what we know really well. So let's come to master. Using makerspace, using the outdoors, using see, this whole jugaad that we talk about in India is all about this. We innately
correct, absolutely, yeah.
So I think
absolutely.
we have it. Yeah.
Yeah, you very beautifully put it in a nutshell, your answer. So thank you so much for your answer. I'm moving to Dr. Kavita Aggarwal. And ma'am, I would be seeking few tips from you for all the for the entire audience who are watching us today, and maybe in future when they will be just going through this conversation. I want a few tips from you where a teacher, I'm not talking about educator, I'm saying a teacher can be transformed into a facilitator. Because I think when we talk about experiential learning, this is the need. So, few tips on that, please. Ma'am, you're on mute, please.
Teachers can be transformed into facilitator. See, what is the goal in the current education system and also in NEP at large, that the child is going to give the exam? Maybe after 4 years, after 10 years, or after he is going to appear for the exam. So if we change the perspective of testing from testing of not memory but knowledge, everything will revolve around it. When the aim of education becomes the testing of knowledge but not the memory, so the wheel is going to spin in a different way. And secondly, to empower the teacher, it's not practically possible for all the schools, all the government, for everybody to train each and every teacher for the current pedagogy. So what is the best way? You have to actually develop the sharing of the best practices. At platform of MISA, what we have done, we must have trained over 1 lakh of teachers and without any cost. How we have trained? In the beginning of every year, we organize one cell meet. For example, we have English, math, science, physics, chemistry, everything.
Yeah.
So we have 1 or 2 expert facilitators, those who are master in that field, and we invite the teacher from all the school to join the Google link or the Zoom link or in physical, wherever we keep. And we discuss what is the curriculum framework, how to implement that curriculum framework, how to assess the curriculum framework, and how to reflect on that, and what are our resources. So when we talk about implementation, we give lot of tips to the teachers that how to implement, because implementation is the gist of everything. Once the curriculum is transacted in a right way, everything will be beautiful. And many teacher in one cell meet, we have like 400 500 teachers, and they get totally empowered, and they are so confident in the class that we learn this and let us execute this. So sharing of the best practices is the only platform that everybody will be empowered. You embrace the rural teachers and the B town teachers, A town teachers, metro cities teachers, because the world has come very close to each other on the digital platform. It's not very a big thing, but little bit of generosity and meticulous planning is required.
Perfect. I think this is one of the best, take home today. Of course, each one of you have contributed so beautifully, and I myself feel pretty empowered today after having this discussion with you all. And one thing which is going to be my take home once again from this panel is more than anything else, I think self motivation matters, because we can plan for many things, but at the end of the day, we have to be motivated. We should take pride of the fact that we have been given such a big responsibility to be an educator and a facilitator rather. And this kind of the self motivation and pride for our profession will enough initially to bring the change. And once we all are in the we all are in that flow, then we all know how the snowball effect is, and the things can change in no time. So thank you so much, each one of you, for your wonderful inputs, for your time. Certainly we have missed Miss Pratibha Mishra today because she's down with COVID, so our best wishes to her for the soonest recovery. And of course Miss Meeta Sharma, who could not rejoin. Probably there is some connectivity issues. So yes, that is there. And over to you, Krishna ji, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, because it has been really a wonderful session. Thank you one and all. Thank you, Miss Sonya. Thank you, Miss Anuradha. Thank you, Dr. Kavita. And yes, Mr. Krishna, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all the speakers. The session was very well moderated and very well delivered by our speakers. Thank you once again. Moving on with our speaker certificate distribution. First of all, Dr. Kavita Bajpai, Director, the International School of Thrissur. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The next will be
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kavita Aggarwal, Chairperson, MISA, Mumbai.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And the next will be, can I have the next speaker's certificate, please? Ms. Sonya Ghandy Mehta, School Director, Pathways World School, Aravali. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Ms. Meeta Sharma, Principal, Mussoorie International School, Mussoorie. Unfortunately, she left in between just because of their internet connection. Thank you for that. And last but not least, Ms. Anuradha Krishnan, Principal, Primus Public School, Bengaluru.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all the speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure connecting with each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. You were very good host, Dr. Kavita.
Thank you.
Dr. Kavita, you were very good host. I congratulate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll connect.
I'm looking forward
Bye.
to see you once again. Yes, we will connect.
Sure.
Because
Sure,
I still remember your session when you had invited someone from UK to speak on Sanskrit. And I think that was the time when I met you for the first time. I think in 2015 or something.
Mr. Paul.
Yes. And
Paul
that was a wonderful
Palmarosa.
session.
Yes.
Correct.
Are you member of MISA?
Oh, till then, yes, I was associated with one of the schools, ma'am. And then later I moved forward to start my own school. So this is basically, so I'm one of the co-founders there. So yes, now I'm based out in Mumbai, but the school is in Thrissur.
Congratulations. We'll connect.
Thank you. Certainly,
Okay.
ma'am. We will.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Mr. Krishnan.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
And with this, I would like to close the session for the today. We'll rejoin tomorrow at 10 a.m. with more interesting, thoughtful panel discussion. Thank you and see you tomorrow. Aman, can I have the AV, please?
विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।